The divorce papers weren't scheduled to arrive until next Tuesday. Instead, on my 38th birthday, I found myself staring at a shockingly pink envelope, surrounded by the 3 people I'd considered my closest confidants. "Happy birthday, Arthur," my mother-in-law Patricia chirped, her voice dripping with a saccharine sweetness that felt utterly disingenuous. Her perfectly manicured fingers, adorned with rings that cost more than most people's cars, trembled slightly as she presented the envelope. "This is from all of us." I surveyed the upscale restaurant, Romano's, the very place where Isabella and I had shared our first date 8 years prior. The irony was palpable, a bitter punchline to a joke I hadn't asked for. My wife sat across from me, her phone strategically positioned to capture my every reaction. Beside her, her brother William smirked, fiddling with his expensive watch as if timing a meticulously planned event. "What's this?" I asked, though the question was rhetorical. The weight of the envelope, Isabella's inability to meet my gaze, the palpable nervous energy radiating from William. It all pointed to an inescapable conclusion. "Just open it, honey," Isabella whispered, the pet name sounding strangely alien, almost forgotten. How long had it been? 6 months? A year? The last time she'd called me honey felt like a lifetime ago. I tore open the envelope with a deliberate slowness, my hands surprisingly steady despite the adrenaline surge coursing through my veins. Inside, the divorce papers lay neatly arranged, pre-filled and liberally annotated with sticky notes indicating where I was expected to sign. Someone with meticulous attention to detail had even highlighted the sections regarding asset division in a garish yellow. The restaurant buzzed around us, the joyful chatter of couples, the celebratory atmosphere of families, the efficient hustle of waiters carrying steaming plates, a stark contrast to the silent drama unfolding at our table. None of them, oblivious to the gravity of the moment, seemed to realize they were witnessing a calculated, cold-blooded execution of my marriage. William leaned forward, his barely contained excitement palpable. "What do you think?" he asked, unable to mask his anticipation. I carefully set down the papers, reached into my jacket pocket, and produced the Mont Blanc pen Isabella had gifted me on our first anniversary. A pen she'd declared a symbol of our shared future, smooth, elegant, and built to last. "Thank you," I said, my voice remarkably calm as I signed each page with practiced efficiency. "This is exactly what I needed." The expressions of utter confusion on their faces were priceless. Isabella's phone nearly slipped from her grasp. Patricia's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. William's smirk faltered, replaced by a look of bewildered disbelief. I stood, placed $300 on the table, enough to cover their celebratory meal intended to mark my humiliation, and slipped the signed papers back into the pink envelope. "Happy birthday to me," I said, sliding the envelope across to Isabella. "Enjoy your celebration." I walked out of Romano's with my head held high, leaving behind 3 stunned faces and the wreckage of 8 years of marriage. The valet brought my truck around. I tipped him generously, $50, because, well, it was my birthday after all. As I drove away, I glanced back through the restaurant window. Isabella was frantically waving her hands. Patricia clutched her chest in a dramatic display of distress, and William was glued to his phone, likely frantically calling someone to unravel the sudden, unexpected turn of events. If only they knew what I had already discovered before dessert even arrived. The discovery, like most life-altering moments, had been entirely accidental. I'd returned home early from the logistics company I'd built from the ground up over the past decade, intending to surprise Isabella with birthday dinner reservations. Instead, I received the surprise of my life. I heard voices emanating from the living room, Isabella's laughter and another woman's voice I recognized as Vivian's. I was about to announce my presence when I heard my own name. "Arthur's such an idiot," Isabella was saying. "He has no idea what's coming." I froze in the hallway, keys still clutched in my hand. "Half his assets," Vivian replied, her voice brimming with a chilling satisfaction. "The business, the house, the investment accounts, everything. And Robert promises you Paris once this is all over." Robert. Isabella's boss at the marketing firm where she'd worked for the past 3 years. The same Robert who'd been calling her at odd hours. The same Robert whose name consistently popped up in her text message notifications. "I can't wait to see his face when we serve him the papers," Isabella continued, her words dripping with malice. "William's going to film the whole thing. We'll have it for the divorce proceedings. Show how he reacted. Make him look unstable. Brilliant." "That boy never deserved you anyway," Vivian chimed in, her voice laced with contempt. "Blue-collar trash with delusions of grandeur. Robert can give you the life you actually deserve." I quietly retreated from the house, my mind racing. Blue-collar trash, 8 years of marriage, reduced to that cruel, dismissive label. I replayed the countless family dinners where Vivian had smiled at me, the numerous occasions William had sought my business advice, the countless nights Isabella had fallen asleep in my arms. It had all been a carefully constructed facade, a meticulously woven web of deceit. I drove to Murphy's Bar, a dimly lit establishment on the south side where my old army buddy Marcus had tended bar for the past 5 years. The place reeked of stale cigarettes and shattered dreams, a fitting ambiance for my current state of mind. "You look like someone ran over your dog," Marcus said, sliding a whiskey across the scarred wooden bar. "What's eating you?" I told him everything. The overheard conversation, the months of Isabella working late, her growing coldness and emotional distance. Marcus listened without interruption, occasionally nodding or refilling my glass. "So, what's the play?" he asked once I'd finished. "I don't know yet," I admitted, "but they want to ambush me on my birthday. They want to film my humiliation. Fine. Let's give them a show they'll never forget." Marcus grinned, the same mischievous glint in his eyes he'd worn before we'd stormed insurgent compounds in the Middle East. "I'm listening. First, I need to know everything. Who's this Robert guy? How long has this been going on? What exactly are they planning?" "I know a guy," Marcus said. "Private investigator owes me a favor. Give me 24 hours. The next morning, Marcus's call delivered information that sent a chill down my spine and solidified my resolve. Robert Morrison, 45, married with 2 children, senior partner at Morrison and Associates Marketing. He'd been having an affair with Isabella for 8 months. Hotels, weekend getaways, even a trip to Paris booked for the week after my birthday, including reservations at an exclusive adults-only resort. But the most shocking revelation was that Robert was already married to a high-powered divorce attorney named Catherine Morrison. The very Catherine Morrison who had made headlines the previous year for financially decimating a cheating tech CEO in what the newspapers had dubbed the divorce of the decade. "There's more," Marcus continued. "Your mother-in-law has been feeding them information about your business, bank statements, investment accounts, property deeds. She's been photographing everything when she visits." "How's that possible?" I asked, incredulous. "Turns out William works for a private investigation firm. Not a very good one, but they know how to dig up financial information. They've been building a case against you for months." A cold, hard knot settled in my chest. They hadn't merely planned to divorce me. They'd meticulously plotted my financial ruin. "What do you want to do?" Marcus asked. "I want to disappear," I said. "Legally, financially, completely. And then, I want to watch their world burn." I spent the next 36 hours restructuring my entire life. The advantage of owning a logistics company is understanding how to move things quickly and efficiently, including assets. My lawyer, Janet Pierce, had handled my business incorporation 5 years prior. She was sharp, discreet, and possessed a deep-seated dislike for cheating spouses, a sentiment born from her own messy divorce. You want to do what? She asked, raising a skeptical eyebrow as I sat in her office at 7 a.m. Transfer controlling interest in the company to a trust with my niece as the primary beneficiary, I replied. She's 25, has an MBA, and she's been working in the business for 2 years. Isabella's never met her. She doesn't even know she exists. That's actually brilliant, Janet admitted. What about your other assets? Investment accounts get moved offshore legally. The house goes into the trust as well. I want to be worth exactly what I had when Isabella and I got married, about $50,000 and a 10-year-old pickup truck. This is going to cost you less than a divorce would? Janet smiled. I like the way you think. Give me 24 hours. While Janet worked her magic, I made other preparations. I installed hidden security cameras around the house, the kind Isabella would never notice. I copied every file from her laptop, every text message from her phone, every email from her accounts. The woman who'd called me blue-collar trash had made the classic white-collar mistake of assuming I was technologically inept. I also paid a visit to Robert Morrison's office. Morrison and Associates occupied the top 3 floors of a glass tower downtown. Robert's corner office boasted a breathtaking river view and likely cost more to furnish than most people earned in a year. I dressed the part: khakis, a polo shirt, work boots, the uniform of someone accustomed to getting things done. I'm here about the air conditioning, I told his secretary, presenting a fake work order Marcus had printed. The boss says there have been complaints about the temperature in Mr. Morrison's office. She waved me through without a second glance. Robert was on a conference call, his back to the door as he gestured expansively at the view. He was exactly as I'd envisioned. Soft around the middle, impeccably suited, the type of man who'd never performed a day's manual labor in his life. I feigned inspecting the air vents while listening to his conversation. He was discussing a client presentation, his voice brimming with the self-assuredness born from never facing real-world consequences. When he finished his call and turned, I stood by his desk. "Who are you?" he asked, startled. "David Chen," I said, watching his face drain of color. "Isabella's husband." He opened his mouth to summon security, but I raised a hand. "Relax, Robert. I'm not here to cause trouble." "I just wanted to meet the man who's been screwing my wife." "I don't know what you're talking about," he stammered. "Sure you don't," I said, picking up a framed photo from his desk, him with his wife and children at a tropical resort. "Nice family. Does Catherine know about your Paris plans?" The color completely vanished from his face. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued, my voice even and measured. "You're going to continue your affair with Isabella. You're going to take that trip to Paris. You're going to do exactly what you planned. But understand this, I know everything. Every hotel, every lie, every text message. And when the time comes, I'm going to use all of it." "Are you threatening me?" he asked, his voice tight with apprehension. "I'm educating you," I said. "See, you think you're playing chess, but you don't even know what game I'm playing. Enjoy Paris, Robert." I hear it's beautiful this time of year. I left him standing there, probably agonizing over whether to call the police, Isabella, or his lawyer. It didn't matter. The seed of doubt had been planted, and doubt is a potent weapon. That evening, I arrived home to find Isabella cooking dinner, something she hadn't done in months. She was actually humming as she moved around the kitchen. "You're in a good mood," I observed. "Just happy," she said, kissing my cheek. "Work's been going really well lately." "I'll bet it has," I thought. "By the way," she continued, "I thought we could go to Romano's for your birthday. You know, where we had our first date. It would be nice to have the family there. Mom and William want to celebrate with us." "That sounds perfect," I said. "I can't wait." The morning after my birthday dinner, I awoke to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Isabella was already gone, likely at Robert's place, attempting to decipher what had gone wrong with their meticulously crafted plan. The messages were a chaotic mix of panic, anger, and confusion. Isabella. We need to talk now. William. What the heck was that about? Call me. Vivian. David, this is unacceptable. You can't just sign papers and walk away. Isabella. You're being childish. We can work this out. Isabella. I know you're getting these messages. Stop ignoring me. I deleted them all and went to work. My logistics company, Chen Distribution, operated out of a warehouse complex on the industrial side of town. 47 employees, contracts with major retailers across the Midwest, and a reputation for delivering goods on time and in perfect condition. My assistant Sarah looked surprised when I arrived at 7:30 a.m. You're early for a birthday, boy, she said. How was dinner last night? Enlightening, I replied. Is my niece in yet? Jessica? Yeah? She's in the office going over the quarterly reports. Jessica Chen was my brother's daughter, though most people assumed she was just another employee. She possessed her father's analytical mind and her mother's ruthless efficiency. I'd been grooming her to take over the business for 2 years, though I'd never revealed the reason why. Uncle David, she said when I knocked on her office door. Happy birthday. How was the family dinner? Memorable, I said, closing the door behind me. We need to talk. I explained everything, the divorce, the asset transfer, her new role as majority owner of the company. Jessica listened without interruption, her expression growing increasingly serious with each detail. So, Isabella never knew about me? She asked, finally. I kept my family separate from hers, I admitted. Your aunt always thought my side of the family was beneath her standards. And now I own 60% of a multi-million-dollar logistics company? She asked, a glint of understanding in her eyes. Now you own 60% of a multi-million-dollar logistics company, I confirmed. Think you can handle it? Jessica smiled, the same predatory expression I'd witnessed when she'd negotiated our last major contract. What do you need me to do? For now, nothing. Run the business like you have been. But if Isabella or anyone from her family shows up here, you don't know me as anything other than an employee. What about when they find out about the asset transfers? That's when things get interesting. Around noon, Isabella arrived at the warehouse. I watched through the security cameras as she strode through the loading dock in her designer heels and business suit, completely out of place amidst the forklifts and shipping containers. I need to speak with David Chen, she told Sarah, her voice sharp and demanding. He's in a meeting, Sarah replied calmly. Can I take a message? I'm his wife. Get him now. I had Sarah buzz my office and instructed her to send Isabella in. I wanted this conversation on my terms, under my control. Isabella stormed into my office like a whirlwind, her face flushed with anger. What the heck do you think you're doing? She demanded. Working? I said, without looking up from my computer. You know, that thing I do to pay for your lifestyle. Don't play games with me, David. You signed those papers, but you can't just disappear. We have assets to divide, arrangements to make. What assets? I asked innocently. The house, the business, your investment accounts. What about them? Isabella stared at me, utterly bewildered. They need to be divided according to the divorce settlement. I read the papers. I said, I replied, you get half of everything I owned when we got married. Congratulations. You're now entitled to $25,000 and half of a 10-year-old pickup truck. That's not... She stopped, her face paling. What did you do? You see, I said, adapting my approach. When someone spends 8 months planning to destroy your life, you have 2 choices. You can be a victim, or you can be smarter than they are. Isabella's hands were trembling. The house belongs to a family trust. Your business. I'm just an employee now, The investment accounts? What investment accounts? She sank into the chair across from my desk, the crushing weight of reality finally settling upon her. "You can't do this," she whispered. "I already did," I said. "But don't worry, you and Robert will have a wonderful time in Paris. I hear the weather's perfect this time of year." The mention of Robert's name struck her like a physical blow. "How did you know about the affair?" "Isabella, I've known for months. The late nights, the secret phone calls, the way you started caring about your appearance again. Did you really think I was that stupid?" Tears streamed down her face, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret, no love, only a chilling satisfaction. "We can fix this," she said desperately. "I'll end things with Robert. We can go to counseling, work things out." "No," I said simply. "We can't. You made your choice 8 months ago. You just didn't expect me to make mine." "David, please. The papers are signed." "Isabella, you got exactly what you asked for. Now get out of my office." She left, sobbing, her meticulously planned ambush having spectacularly backfired. Through the security cameras, I watched her sit in her car for 20 minutes, likely calling Robert, her mother, desperately trying to understand how everything had gone so terribly wrong. But I wasn't done, not even close. Over the next week, I watched Isabella's world begin to unravel with the same detached interest I'd once applied to tracking shipments across the country. The first crack appeared when she attempted to access our joint savings account and discovered it had been closed. Then came the realization that the house was no longer in our names. Then her credit cards, linked to my accounts, were declined at her favorite boutique. Marcus kept me updated on her movements through his network of bartenders, servers, and other service industry workers who formed the invisible intelligence network of any city. "She's been at Morrison's office every day this week," he reported over drinks at Murphy's. "My guy at the coffee shop across the street says she looks like heck. Robert's not taking her calls." "Smart man," I said. "He knows his wife could destroy him in a divorce." "Speaking of which," Marcus continued, "Catherine Morrison's been asking questions about her husband's travel plans." I smiled. "Has she now? Word is she hired a private investigator last month. Apparently, Robert's not as careful as he thinks he is." The second crack emerged when William showed up at the warehouse, demanding to speak with me. Unlike Isabella's emotional approach, William opted for intimidation. "You think you're clever?" he said, pacing around my office like a caged animal. "But we know what you did. Moving assets, hiding money. That's fraud." "Is it?" I asked. "Because my lawyer says it's smart financial planning." "We'll see what a judge says." "By all means, take me to court," I said. "I'm sure a judge will be very interested in hearing about how you and your family conspired to ambush me with divorce papers on my birthday. How you plan to film my reaction for use in legal proceedings. How your mother committed identity theft to access my financial information." William's face went white. I have recordings, William. Video, audio, documentation of everything. You want to play in court? Let's play." He left without another word. The third crack was the most significant. Catherine Morrison filed for divorce from Robert, citing adultery and demanding an emergency injunction to freeze all of his assets. The local business journal ran the story on its front page, complete with photos of Robert and Isabella leaving a downtown hotel. Isabella called me that night, hysterical. "They fired me," she sobbed into the phone. "The company fired me. They said I was a liability." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, though I felt no remorse whatsoever. "Robert won't return my calls. His wife is threatening to sue me for alienation of affection." "David, I need help." "You need a lawyer," I said. "A good one." "They're expensive, though." "I don't have money for a lawyer. You took everything." "I took what was mine," I corrected. "You wanted a divorce, Isabella. This is what divorce looks like." "I made a mistake," she whispered. "I know that now. Can't we?" I hung up on her. but Isabella's family wasn't ready to surrender. Vivian, having spent 60 years manipulating her way through life using guilt and social pressure, wasn't about to let her daughter's meal ticket disappear without a fight. She showed up at my apartment, the modest two-bedroom place I'd rented after moving out of the house, adorned in her finest jewelry, carrying herself with the self-importance of visiting royalty. "David," she said when I opened the door, "we need to talk." "No, we don't," I replied, starting to close the door. She blocked the doorway with her foot, her face contorted with a mixture of desperation and feigned indignation. "You can't treat my daughter like this. Isabella made a mistake, but she's family." "Family forgives." "Was I family when you called me blue-collar trash?" I asked. "Was I family when you helped plan my humiliation?" I have recordings, Vivian, every word." She stepped back, her composure finally cracking. "What do you want?" she asked finally. "I want you to leave me alone," I said. "All of you. Isabella wanted a divorce. She got one. You wanted me out of your family. I'm out. Congratulations, you won. But Isabella needs to learn that actions have consequences. I said something you should have taught her 36 years ago." I closed the door in her face and listened to her pound on it for 5 minutes before giving up. 2 weeks after my birthday dinner, I received a call from Marcus. "You need to get down here," he said. "Now." I found him at Murphy's, sporting a black eye and a split lip, calmly cleaning glasses as if nothing unusual had happened. "What the heck happened to you?" I asked. "Your brother-in-law and 2 of his friends decided to pay me a visit," Marcus said. "They wanted information about you, where you're living, where you work, what your plans are." Rage, hot and immediate, surged through me. "Are you okay?" "I've had worse," he said, "but they made a mistake." "What kind of mistake?" Marcus grinned, wincing as the expression pulled at his split lip. "They didn't know about the security cameras or the fact that I still have friends from our army days, or that assault is a felony." "You called the police?" "I called someone better," he said. "Remember Miller from our unit? He's a detective now. William and his buddies are going to have a very interesting conversation with him tomorrow morning." But that wasn't enough for me. William had crossed a line by involving Marcus, and I was finished playing defense. I spent the next day tracking down William's friends, the 2 men who had helped him assault my best friend. It wasn't difficult. William lacked the intelligence to hire professionals. These were simply thugs he knew from whatever bar he frequented. I found them that evening at a pool hall on the north side, celebrating their easy payday with cheap beer and cheaper whiskey. "You boys have a good time last night?" I asked, sliding onto a bar stool next to them. The larger one, a man with prison tattoos and missing teeth, sized me up. "Do I know you?" he asked. "I'm the guy whose friend you beat up," I said calmly. Both men tensed, anticipating a fight. What they didn't expect was the envelope I placed on the bar between us. "What's that?" The smaller man asked. "Photos?" I confirmed. "Photos from the security cameras at Murphy's bar. Crystal clear shots of your faces, the attack, everything." I added, "And there's a copy of the police report my friend filed this morning." They exchanged uneasy glances, their earlier bravado noticeably diminished. "Here's what's going to happen," I stated, my voice firm and measured. "You're going to call William and tell him the deal is off. You're going to completely disappear from this situation. And if I ever see either of you anywhere near my friend again, these photos, along with your names and addresses, go to every police department in the city." The larger man mumbled, "You can't prove nothing," but his words lacked any real conviction, his voice betraying his uncertainty. "Can't I?" I retorted, pulling out my phone. I displayed a pristine high-definition video clearly showing them entering Murphy's, following William inside, and leaving 10 minutes later as William counted out cash. Technology is amazing these days, I remarked, a subtle note of triumph in my voice. They hadn't even finished their drinks before fleeing the scene. But William presented a different challenge altogether. He was family, meaning Isabella and Vivian would shield him regardless of his actions. More troubling, he was foolish enough to escalate matters if I didn't handle him carefully. The opportunity didn't require much patience. 2 nights later, William appeared at my apartment building, drunk and aggressive, spewing threats and insults in the parking lot. I let him rant for 5 minutes, giving him ample opportunity to incriminate himself while I discreetly recorded everything from my balcony. Then I descended the stairs. "You done?" I asked calmly, my tone suggesting a measured patience that was quickly wearing thin. William spun around, swaying precariously. "You think you're so smart?" he slurred, his words thick with alcohol. "But I know things about you. I know where you work, where you live. I know how to hurt you, like you hurt Marcus." That, he emphasized, was merely a warning, a taste of what was to come. He lunged, throwing a wild, drunken punch. I anticipated the blow, easily sidestepping it and letting his momentum carry him past me. He stumbled, regaining his balance against a car before whirling around, eyes blazing with rage. "You want to do this here?" I asked, gesturing to the surroundings. "In front of all these cameras, with all these witnesses?" William glanced around, suddenly aware of the several neighbors who had emerged to observe the unfolding spectacle. His bravado visibly deflated. "This isn't over," he muttered, his threat lacking its previous force. "Yes, it is," I replied firmly. "Because if you ever threaten me or my friends again, I will have you arrested for assault, harassment, and anything else I can think of, and then I will sue you for everything you're worth, which, admittedly, isn't much." William departed, but I knew he wouldn't stay away for long. Men of his type always returned, and I was correct. 3 days later, William reappeared at my workplace, accompanied by Isabella and Vivian. This time it was clearly a planned, coordinated attack designed to trap me and force a negotiation. They easily bypassed the loading dock because I allowed them. I wanted this confrontation to occur on my territory, under my watchful gaze, with my employees as witnesses and my security cameras recording every detail. Isabella called out as they approached my office. "David, we need to talk." I stepped out to meet them in the warehouse, surrounded by my employees, with Jessica observing from the office above. "What can I do for you folks?" I inquired politely, maintaining a calm demeanor despite the palpable tension. "You can stop this childish behavior," Vivian snapped, her voice sharp and accusatory. "Isabella is your wife. You have responsibilities." "Isabella is my ex-wife," I corrected, emphasizing the point. "As of 2 weeks ago, and my only responsibility is to myself." "We know about your little shell game," William interjected, his tone menacing. "Moving assets? Hiding money? That's illegal." "Is it?" I countered, my voice steady and controlled. "Because the IRS seems to think everything I did was perfectly legal. So does my lawyer. So do the banks." "You can't just walk away from 8 years of marriage," Isabella said, her voice cracking with emotion. "We built a life together." "No," I refuted. "I built a life. You lived in it while planning to destroy it. There's a difference." A hush fell over the warehouse. 47 employees had ceased their work to observe the dramatic confrontation. I noticed several of them recording the scene with their phones. Isabella tried again. "David, I know I made mistakes." "You made choices," I interrupted, my voice firm and unwavering. "You chose to have an affair. You chose to plan an ambush divorce. You chose to call me blue-collar trash. You chose to try to take everything I worked for. These weren't mistakes, Isabella. They were decisions." "So what happens now?" she asked, desperation evident in her voice. "Now you live with the consequences of your choices," I responded, my voice unwavering, "just like I'm living with mine." William stepped forward aggressively. This isn't over. Yes, it is, I replied, my voice hard and resolute. Because if any of you ever contact me again, if you ever show up at my workplace again, if you ever threaten my friends again, I will make your lives very, very difficult. How? Vivian demanded, defiance lacing her tone. I smiled, the expression cold and chilling enough to make her take a step back. I'm a logistics expert, Vivian. I know how to move things. Information, money, people. I know how to track shipments across the country, how to coordinate complex operations, how to make sure things end up exactly where they need to be. Do you really want to find out what I can do when I put my mind to it? They departed without another word, but I saw in their eyes that the conflict was far from resolved. They would regroup, formulate new plans, devise new methods of attack. I anticipated it. The resolution arrived 3 weeks later, but not as any of us had foreseen. I was at Murphy's with Marcus, celebrating his recovery from the beating William's friends had inflicted upon him when Catherine Morrison entered. Robert's soon-to-be ex-wife was the antithesis of Isabella, confident, self-assured, and utterly ruthless. "Mr. Chen," she said, approaching our table. "I'm Catherine Morrison. I believe we have some mutual interests to discuss." Marcus raised an eyebrow but remained silent as Catherine seated herself. "I know about your situation with your ex-wife and my husband," she continued. "I also know about their little Parisian adventure scheduled for next week." "Congratulations on your divorce," I offered carefully, gauging her intentions. Catherine smiled, a sharp, predatory expression. "Thank you. Robert's going to lose everything. The house, the business, custody of the children. I'm very good at what I do." "I'm sure you are," I agreed. "But I have a proposition for you. Something that might benefit us both." She slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside were photographs, bank statements, hotel receipts, and a meticulously detailed timeline of Robert and Isabella's affair. "I've been documenting my husband's infidelity for months," Catherine explained. "I have enough evidence to utterly destroy him in court, but I want more than just a favorable divorce settlement. What do you want?" "I want him to suffer," she stated simply. "I want him to understand what it feels like to lose everything he's worked for, and I think you want the same thing for your ex-wife." She was correct, of course, but I was curious about her approach. "What are you proposing?" "Robert and Isabella are leaving for Paris tomorrow night," Catherine revealed. "They believe they're finally free to be together, to begin their new life. What they don't know is that I've already contacted the French authorities about Robert's extensive tax evasion. He's been secretly stashing assets in offshore accounts for years." "That's between you and him," I commented. "True," Catherine conceded. "But what if Isabella were also implicated? What if it appeared she'd been assisting him in illegally moving money? What if she were detained by French customs upon their attempted return to the United States?" The implications were profound. Isabella could face international fraud charges, extradition proceedings, and years of costly legal battles. "That seems excessive," I remarked, despite a flicker of intrigue. "Does it?" Catherine challenged. "Your ex-wife destroyed your marriage for money. She conspired with my husband to defraud you in the divorce settlement. She participated in moving assets to hidden accounts. From my perspective, she's just as guilty as he is." Marcus leaned forward. "What exactly are you asking David to do?" "Nothing illegal," Catherine assured us. "I just need some information. Isabella's passport number, her travel itinerary, her phone records, things that would help the authorities strengthen their case." "I don't have access to that information," I lied. Catherine smiled. "Of course you don't. But if you did, and if you were to share it with the appropriate authorities, Isabella might find herself in a very difficult situation, one that would make your little asset protection scheme look like child's play." She stood, leaving the envelope on the table. "Think about it, Mr. Chen. But don't think too long, they leave tomorrow night." After her departure, Marcus and I sat in silence for several minutes. "That woman is terrifying," Marcus finally observed. "She's also right," I admitted. Isabella had participated in Robert's schemes. She had attempted to defraud me. She had chosen to destroy our marriage for financial gain. "So, what are you going to do?" Marcus pressed. I recalled Isabella's expression when she'd handed me the divorce papers, the satisfaction in her voice when she'd called me blue-collar trash, the months of lies and deceit that had culminated in that moment. "I'm going to give Catherine Morrison exactly what she wants," I declared. The following evening, I sat in my apartment, a glass of whiskey at my side, my laptop displaying a flight tracker on the screen. Air France Flight 447 to Charles de Gaulle Airport had just departed from O'Hare, carrying Isabella and Robert toward what they believed to be their new beginning. What they didn't know was that French customs officials awaited them with arrest warrants, extradition requests, and irrefutable evidence of international money laundering that would embroil them in protracted legal proceedings for years. What they also didn't know was that Catherine Morrison had manipulated us all. My phone rang around midnight. It was Jessica, calling from the warehouse. "Uncle David," she said, her voice tight with apprehension. "We have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The kind where the FBI just showed up with a warrant to search our financial records." I felt a sickening lurch in my stomach. "What are they looking for?" "Evidence of money laundering, asset concealment, and conspiracy to commit fraud," Jessica replied. "They have documents showing that our company was used to move money for Robert Morrison's offshore accounts." The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. Catherine Morrison hadn't merely sought revenge on her husband and Isabella. She'd sought a scapegoat for Robert's crimes, someone to shoulder the blame while she emerged unscathed. She'd played me flawlessly. "Uncle David." Jessica's voice was small, filled with fear. "What do we do?" I gazed out my apartment window at the city lights, considering Isabella and Robert sitting in a French jail cell, likely blaming each other for their predicament. I thought of William and Vivian, who would soon learn that their daughter faced international criminal charges. I contemplated my business, my employees, my carefully constructed new life. Catherine Morrison had provided me with precisely what I'd desired, the complete annihilation of everyone who had betrayed me. She'd simply neglected to mention that I would be destroyed alongside them. Uncle David. "We call our lawyer," I said, "and we prepare for war." But as I hung up the phone, I found myself smiling. Isabella had longed to witness my reaction when truly enraged, when I had nothing left to lose. She was about to discover